Okay, let's go back to the meeting. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. I'm looking forward to not only today's, but we're going to do this a couple more weeks, all the way up until Pascha, and then it'll shift over back to Leviticus with George Tadros. So here we are in volume 1, and I must have skipped at least 5 stories that I wish I could have shared with you, but because of the time constraint, and I also want to get into volume 2 and 3, um, which I'll share with you also electronically, if you like, because some of these stories are just so beautiful. One of the stories, though, I just want to mention that I skipped over, because not all the stories are have happy endings, and um, the that was the like when I think Saint Theodore, who was the disciple of Saint Pachomius, compiled these stories. They just compiled them and put them all together to help them to just get as much out together, and they put them in these volumes, and they weren't looking to sugarcoat anything or rewrite history. So one of them was of a person that wanted to join the Koinonia. It was 3 guys that wanted to join the fellowship, the monastery, the Koinonia, what's called the Koinonia. And Pachomius looks at two of them and says, "You guys are okay, but this third one is not gonna survive." And he's like, "Why?" And he sort of says, "Look, not everything is for everyone. You can," he says to the person, "you can be saved, but not in the Koinonia." Right? So I just want to kind of drop that there because um, not everything's for everyone, right? And that means even sometimes um, St. John Chrysostom versus another different church, uh, patristics versus liturgy versus, not everything is for everyone, is kind of a good thing to think about, because too often we just think, oh, anybody can do anything. And so in that story, this man said, no, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And St. Pachomius gave in, but not convinced. And the man lived 9 years as a role model. But then he slid back, even after 9 years, into another sin, which he was expelled from the monastery from. Uh, and, there's just like, that's one of the stories I skipped. But we're going to talk about this story here, 111. A brother tormented by the demon is not healed. Okay, so let's listen. It happened again that a man came to the gate of the monastery to become a monk. This man had in himself a demon who often agitated him, but he was an honorable man and very humble. Having looked at him face to face, our father Bechumi saw the demon that was in him. Immediately he took him aside and prayed to the Lord for him that he might cure him of this demon. The unclean spirit answered, saying, You, Pachomius, what have you to do with me? And are you seeking to drive me out of this man? Am I hindering him in any way from doing the whole will of God? The Lord gave me this dwelling place to keep till the day of this man's death. But if you go after me to drive me out of him, know that I will not disobey you, but I will kill him and come out of him. For power has been given me to deal with him this way. On hearing that, our father Pachomius began again to pray for him to the Lord, that he might cure him of this wicked demon. While our father Pachomius was praying for this man that the Lord might take pity on him, cast the wicked spirit out of him, and cure him, the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, Stop praying for this man, Pachomius. The Lord has sent this illness to him for his salvation. If he were healed of it, he would regret it very much. After his prayer, our father Pachomian called the brother aside and told him, "Do not be grieved about this illness, because the Lord has sent it to you for your soul's salvation. Now give him thanks for everything, saying, 'Blessed be the Lord of my salvation.'" From that day on, when people came to him with that illness, and he knew that they would not profit from being healed, he would tell them, "This is for your salvation. Give thanks to the Lord in order to acquire life." So, was it a demon or was it a sickness? Um, I think that uh, in the worldview back then, a lot of illnesses were viewed as demons, but also at a very radical approach to illness. We see that this is the work of the devil. Illness has been brought into the devil, illness and sickness, and death has been brought into the world through the envy of the devil. The dialogue between the two is interesting. You know, is it metaphorical or was it literal? Literal, who knows? But I think the beautiful takeaway is that someone can be given a sickness for their salvation, or allowed sickness, because God is not the source of evil. God is not the source of pain and suffering. He's not the one who doles that out, but is allowed, and he knows that this will be for the salvation of that person. And then here's another sick brother who's not healed. There was a brother in the community of Ifbao who fell sick every third day. He came to our father Pachomian and besought him with tears, "You heal many people from the world, and behold, you have not prayed for me that I might be healed from this difficult illness." He answered him, "Those people are healed in their bodies through their faith, but they tend to evil because of the respite they receive from their illness. Those people are healed from their bodies, in their bodies, through their faith, but they go back to evil when they have a rest from their illness. But the servants of God will receive unfailing rest in the other age, in the age to come, a rest without illness or toil. They walk valiantly in the way of the cross, according to what is written in the gospel. He who loves his soul loses it, but he who hates his soul in this world will find it in the eternal life." When the brother heard this from the man of God, he was greatly comforted. Some time later, seeing that his illness continued, he took with him some of the great men of the monastery and came to our father Pachomian to beseech him to pray over him that God might give him rest. When the man of God saw that they compelled him, he wanted to satisfy them. Immediately he took with him a God-loving monk, one of the great ones who were beseeching him, and they went somewhere to pray for the sick man. When they had begun to pray, a voice came from heaven saying, "Do not ask for rest for this man. God has sent this trial to him in order to save him from the snares of youth that the devils set for him, that he may be saved." Immediately he stopped praying and came out with the other brother. He thought that those outside had heard the voice that had come to him. When he had come out, the brothers came to him and said, "Why did you come out so soon, and did you not pray over the sick man?" He answered them, "Did you not hear that voice, the voice that came?" They said, "No." The other brother who had been praying with him also said, "I did not hear anything either." He told them all that had happened to him and how the voice had come when he was praying. When the brothers had heard this, they marveled, saying, "Great is the work of the Lord, for he is good and cares for those who seek him. Without him, nothing would exist." Another kind of interesting story about someone who's left without what they're wanting, but something miraculous also happened in the meantime. Um, if only we had this discernment in our day and age. Because every time someone is sick or goes through a problem, we think, oh, we have to pray that the problem go away. Whereas maybe it's just something that we have to carry our cross during that period of time. Pachomius' trip to heaven. I love this, and I love these. There are stories within the Pachomian Koinonia where he gets to see heaven and he gets to see hell sometimes. Those that are rejoicing, those that are suffering, and I think they're very beautiful in the way that he approaches it. Can you just open that door if it's locked? It happened once that he fell sick and he suffered so much that those sent out to fetch him snatched his soul away and he died. I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the angels that come to fetch the souls. Then he was brought to the other age. But as he was approaching the gate of life, an order came from God to bring him back to his body once more. He was sad when he learned this because he did not want to come back to his own body again. Indeed, he saw that the light of that air was wonderful and of such beauty as to be indescribable because of its splendor. As he was sad, a man who stood at the door to guard it turned toward him to look at him. The face of that man shone like a great painting because of its splendor, and the appearance of his body was all light. That man said to him, "Go, my son, return to your body, for you still have to suffer a small martyrdom in the world." When he heard this word, he was very happy, for he greatly desired to be a martyr for the Lord's name. The angels who rejoiced with him informed him that this man who is speaking to you is the Apostle Paul. As soon as they brought him to the place where his body was, the soul considered its body, and behold, it was dead. It happened that when the soul approached the body, all the members of the body secretly opened up. The soul took its place again, and the body became alive. While Pachomian' soul was carried away, the brother who was with him slept. After this, he was carried away to paradise many other times. In what manner? God knows. As the apostle says, either in the body I do not know, or without the body I do not know. It is God who knows. And so it is that one was caught up to the third heaven, and he heard secret words which man is not allowed to repeat. So also our father Pachomian was carried away to that place, and he saw the cities of the saints, of which it is not possible to describe the constructions, the monuments, and the good things that the Lord has prepared for those who love him. When he saw those cities, he remembered that the Lord says in the parable in the gospel, speaking to the servants whose talents had produced 10 and 5 talents, enter into your master's happiness. And again, he said to one, be in charge of 10 cities, and to the other, be in charge of 5. The climate of that age is very even and its surface without limits. The fruit trees and the vineyards produce a spiritual food and are incorruptible, so that the fruits of the trees of this age are like unworthy and contemptible things compared to their variety. No tree or plant growing in paradise is ever deprived of fruits profusely giving out great fragrance. Coming into our property here, you can smell the orange blossoms. And of course, the fruit trees, it becomes like, almost like heaven is going to be, infinitely greater than this, which is beautiful. A man cannot bear that fragrance without passing out, unless the Lord gives him the grace. That age is above this earth and outside the firmament. That land is far above the mountains. The lights that are in the firmament and light in the earth are not those that lighten that age, but it is the Lord that lightens it, as Isaiah says. It will not be the light of the sun that will lighten us during the day, neither the shining of the moon that will lighten us by night, but the Lord will be our everlasting light. It's interesting that they didn't quote Revelation there, because the same verse would have been, or similar verse would have been found there. There's no day or night in that age, but it is lightened by an abundant and unceasing light. So great are its boundaries that this world is nothing in comparison. A little outside the paradise there are many fruit trees and vineyards totally like those of this world. And when our father Pachomian saw them, he thought within himself, perhaps Noah took some of them and planted the world again after the flood. He was thinking of the word written in the book of Genesis. After they came out of the ark, Noah and his sons began to be farmers and planted a vineyard. That age was also surrounded by a great and thick darkness full of tiny insects, so that no one can enter there unless he is led there by an angel of God. Um, Something to think about. Just something beautiful in terms of the description. Um, Now, Believe it or not, we're kind of getting towards the end of the life of Saint Pachomius here. Um, but that doesn't mean we're gonna stop where there's some kind of answer or some sayings, and then the Pachomian Koinonia kind of continues on to a few other leaders, which we'll talk about a little bit today. So his illness was protracted. This is talking about Saint Pachomius. It was during the 40 days of the Holy Passover, in the last week of the 40 days of the Lord's Passover. So this is basically the Great Lent that we're talking about now. When all the brothers of the monasteries were gathered at a vow to celebrate the Passover together. Passover is Easter, resurrection. An angel of the Lord came to him and said, "Prepare yourself, Pachomius, because the Lord will take a great offering from your house on the day of the feast." He thought to himself, "Perhaps the Lord will visit me on the Saturday of the Lord's feast." He spent the 4 days of Passover without eating, grieving and sighing within himself, so that the unity of the Koinonia might not be dissolved. So this is kind of important because it was during he was sick from uh, kind of like an epidemic, a pandemic, a plague. He was sick from this plague, and so he was, and there's another place, I can't remember where, maybe we'll read it. He says, we were not scared of death, but he was scared of the destruction of the Koinonia. And in a way, that kind of happened to us in the churches when we were scared to come together, to pray together, to take communion from the same chalice, to be in kind of reaching out to people, visiting people, all that kind of stuff, which you would think is normal life, was part of the Koinonia, the fellowship. It separated us. And he was having that same fear, and he was praying about this, that it wouldn't happen to his monastery as well.
But he refused to get treated, right?
Yeah, so he doesn't want to be treated differently from other people. He wants the same treatment of all the monks. Um, and we'll read that. On Friday evening, the third day, he had not eaten. He gathered all the brothers about him and spoke to them as Samuel had spoken to the people of his time, telling them all the ordinances, all the laws. He likewise spoke with them, saying, "I think, my brothers and my sons, that the time has come for me to go the way of all the earth, like all my fathers. You are well acquainted with my whole mode of life, how I walked with all humility and renunciation in your midst." He's almost sounding like Paul in Acts chapter 20. "You know that I never sought after an easier life in any respect than any one of you. On the contrary, we were all in our life like one single man. I was not hidden from you in anything in this holy place. For the Lord is a witness to my conscience that I have not said these things out of vanity or pride, and indeed I am not going to speak to you of those things I do which are evident to you in order to persuade you, but on the contrary, I'm going to speak to you of those things which have not been manifested, so that your hearts may thus be satisfied. Before God and men, I have not given any scandal to you. Likewise, the Lord knows that if you do not observe all the laws which I have laid down for you, and if you do not put them into practice and carry them out, you will not see any place of rest for your souls. I say this because I do not know what is going to happen to us. For the Lord commands us in the gospel, saying, "Watch, because you do not know the day or the hour when the Son of Man will come." You know what has been my aim. I never corrected any one of you as the one having authority, except for the sake of his soul's salvation. Nor did I move any of you from one place to another or from one occupation to another, unless I knew that it was to his advantage according to God that I do it. So everything basically is related to the salvation of the person. Nor did I ever repay anyone evil for evil, nor did I ever curse anyone who had cursed me in impatience and anger, but on the contrary, I used to teach him patiently, so as not to let him sin against God, saying to him, "Not even though you have sinned against me, a man like you, take care not to sin against God who created you." So Saint Pachomius was very, very patient. I mean, I said the story kind of briefly. There was a man, he said, "I don't think you're going to make it." And he was patient with this guy for 9 years. Um, and then finally, it was enough. And we're going to read, I think there's a couple stories here, if I haven't skipped them already, of his love and his patience for those who are particularly sinning. And in those situations, what we find is Saint Pachomius fasts and prays and is, yeah. So I did skip one of these stories. It says, many fasts and long prayers and many ascetical practices and numerous vigils, staying up all night praying for these individuals. So he did a lot for the sake, like, it's not like you go to the place like a monastery and you just pray for yourself. He's praying for everybody. And so when he sees somebody sinning, he spends more time in prayer for that person. Uh, Prostrations, fasting, psalms, whatever you can imagine. I never became angry when someone reproached me, even if he who reproached me was a little one, like somebody less rank or new to the monasticism. But I would accept this reproach for God's sake as if it were the Lord reproaching me. Nor when I was about to go somewhere or to a community did I ever say, as one having authority, give me a donkey to mount. But I used to go on foot gratefully and humbly. When one of you with a donkey pursued me to make me mounted after I had set out on foot, if he caught up to me with me on the road, when I knew that my body was sick and I needed the relief, I would accept it from him. But if I knew that I was not sick, I would not accept it. With regard to eating, drinking, anointing, and the other means of refreshing the body, you are not ignorant of my use of each of these, as I have told you previously. While he was sitting there, while I was saying these things, Theodore was sitting a little distance off. Yeah. And he said, a little distance off, away, keep weeping with his face down between his knees. Many of the brothers were also weeping, knowing his ceaseless service to everyone and his great humility when he acted as the servant of each one of them in the fear of the Lord. As Paul says, we became like little ones in your midst. As a nurse warms up her children, so we greatly wished to give you not only the gospel of God, but even our souls, because you have become dear to us. But as our father Pachomius asserted all these things to the brothers, he was lying sick. It was the third day he had not eaten. They were all weeping because of the calamity which would fall on them should the Lord visit him. And then on the feast, Abba Pefnuti, who was the brother of Abba Theodore, he is the one that died on that day. Um, uh, and then just kind of going off a little bit further, there's a pandemic or an epidemic or whatever you want to call it. Theodore waited for our father Pachomius while he remained ill. He had been lying for 40 days in the infirmary where all the sick brothers were. He received the same care as all the other brothers in every respect. There was no difference at all between him and them in accordance with the instruction that he had given them earlier. Although his body had become very weak because of the prolonged illness, nevertheless his heart and his eyes were like a flaming fire. He said to Theodore, bring me a mantle which has been worn thin and spread it over me because this one is too heavy. A mantle like a blanket. He says, I will not be able to bear it since I have been sick for 40 days now. Yet I give thanks to the Lord. So Theodore went at once and got a good light mantle from the steward. He brought it and spread it over him. When our father Pachomius saw the difference in the mantle, he became angry at Theodore and said to him, what a great injustice you have done, Theodore. Do you wish me to give scandal to the brothers? Then later on they say, and then later on when they say, but Pachomius had an easier life than the rest of the brothers, I shall become liable to judgment before the Lord. Now take it off of me. I will manage somehow until I go to the Lord. So he's like, scolding Theodore. But Theodore, which is so beautiful, takes it humbly and patiently. Theodore then took it off him. He brought another one, more worn and worse than those of the other sick brothers, and spread it over him. Um, so I'm going to go a little bit further. So this is like essentially we're talking about the year 346. Christianity just had been legalized maybe in the last in 313. 313 was when Constantine passed the Edict of Milan to make Christianity kind of, if I remember correctly, the religion of the state. 325 was the Council of Nicaea. Pope Athanasius is the Pope of the Church. Just kind of putting it in historical perspective. St. Anthony is still alive, I think. St. Anthony is still alive. I don't know why I'm forgetting this. Yeah. Okay. So now he starts to go and kind of name who his successor is. He names Petronius, who was basically old and sick in another monastery, to be the leader of the monasteries, and he was a very revered and holy man. He says something about relics here that I just want to highlight. He says he says to Theodore, "If the Lord visits me, do not leave my body in the place it will be buried in." Grief-stricken, he answered him, "I will do what you say." Then he grabbed his beard, struck him on the breast, and said a second time, "Theodore, pay attention. Do not leave my body in the place where I will be buried. Do not leave my body in the place where I will be buried." Um, Again, he said, "My Lord and Father, I will do gratefully whatever you command." Theodore thought to himself that he was saying this so insistently out of fear some people would steal his body and build a martyrium for it, for it as they do for the holy martyrs. For many times he had heard Pachomius criticize those who do such things, saying, "The saints have not been pleased with those who do such things, because everyone who does this is commercializing the bodies of the saints." So what's he talking about here? What's the commercialization of the bodies of the saints? What's that? Making it an attraction. Like people do pilgrimage and they give donations when they go to these places. And then not only that, they want to beautify it and make it better. And oh, he did a miracle. And so he did a miracle. So, or she did a miracle. So we want to do something else. I and a lot of this was going on during this time especially during this time, because it was right after the persecutions. So all of those people that had been killed under Diocletian, now they were creating churches and martyrians. And I think a martyrian is not necessarily a church. It's just the place where the body is. And of course, there's the buying and selling of the body and other things that was going on. So he was trying to fight against this in the way that in what he's saying. But it's not against relics, but the commercialization of it. I just wanted to point that out here. Now so then it says so here he fell unconscious for a little while and did not say anything more to any of them. Then he made the sign of the cross with his hand 3 times. Suddenly he opened his mouth and gave up his spirit on the 14th of Pashens, at the 10th hour of the day. So that translates, I believe it's not May 9th. I don't know if this is Julian calendar or Gregorian calendar, but it's definitely in May that we remember him in this year 346. So, and of course, there's miraculous things that happen around him, but I wanted to read a few stories about the aftermath of things. Petronius kind of takes over, and they And Petronius sends the brothers with Theodore to Pope Athanasius. So they got to travel by the Nile up, and they're sailing, and their boat gets impounded. Uh, it, this story, I just want to kind of highlight what Theodore says to them he's now becoming a spiritual father for them. They sailed north in their boat until they reached the city of Antinoe. There, their boat was impounded. The brothers wept and became very depressed. This is really a sign that God has forgotten us, since our father has died. While he was still in the body with us, such a thing would never have happened to us. So they're saying, because we don't have those prayers of Emba Pachomius, Saint Pachomius, we don't have anything. But he says, do not be afraid. Theodore says to them, encouraging them, do not be afraid, my brothers, for the Lord God, who is with all the saints and with our fathers, also with us. Consider the case of the man who at present is a friend of the king of this world. Even though he may be far from him, his friend who's the king, he is not afraid of anyone because he is a friend of the king. And not only does nobody do him any harm, but many even ally themselves with him so that he may obtain favors for them, for they know that the king loves him. Then later on, when he leaves his own city and goes to the king's city, will he not enjoy even more confidence because he is closer to the king, though he is only a king of this world? So he's saying we're here, friends of the king, and we have this confidence that we're friends of God, and we have this confidence among people here. And when we go, we will have even more confidence being in front of the king to ask and to petition and to pray for those who are in this world. If then, when our father was with us on the earth, the King of Kings, the Lord of the universe, used to show wonderful goodness to us because of the entreaties and prayers he offered for us in all respects, then now that he has drawn closer to God, will he not be heard all the more when he is in the tents of the just appealing for us? Even if he tests us and does not help us, we do not have a strong faith if we say the Lord has forsaken us, because our boat was impounded. What could we say if the earthly authorities were to exile us? Forget about just impounding our boat. What if they were to exile us, reducing us to slavery like Daniel and his companions? Of them it was written to us, they were in the court of the lawless king Nebuchadnezzar as his slaves, for they were subject to him in everything except that which would have been a sin against God. Then, when he set up a golden image and said to them, if you do not worship it, I will punish you, they chose to hand over their bodies to the fire, rather than to deny the God of their fathers. And to the point is what the blessed apostle Peter wrote for us. Humble yourselves before every human being for the sake of God, whether it is the case of the king as being sovereign or of the governors as sent by him to punish evildoers and to honor those who do good. One must obey such persons for the sake of the Lord. On the other hand, so that these may fear him, one may not deny him or sin against him because of men who are today in power according to the flesh. So we are obedient to them in as much as it's not against the Lord, but for them to also learn the fear of God. We don't deny God in anything just because these people have power in this world. In the words of the blessed Paul, if possible, try to make peace with every man. However, by saying if possible, he makes the matter clear to us. If you will not be sinning against God in the peace you make, then make peace with everyone. If, however, it is a question of a heretic or another such person, and if you sin against God in making peace with him, then flee far from him like someone fleeing from a serpent, that you may not die from the poison of his wickedness. When the brothers heard these words from Abba Theodore, they were much encouraged, and when evening came that day, he said to the brothers, let us rise and pray to the Lord that he may deliver us from those who do evil to us. So they arose and prayed to the Lord with such great pleading that their prayer was prolonged into the middle of the night. The next morning, they were able to get their boat back because of the person that received the dream, and they were distressed because they had taken the boat from these holy men. Now, this is why I had forgotten this part of the story, which is very interesting. They sailed north and they reached the mountain of, I don't know how to pronounce that, but and they asked the blessed Abba Anthony the anchorite. So they were able to see Anthony, Saint Anthony. And they were informed that he was lying ill in the monastery. And so he had not risen from his bed for a while. And then he was told that there are brothers from the Koinonia of Tabanesi. And so on hearing their name, he had one of those around him give his hand to raise him up, since for a long time he had been weak because of advanced age. The brothers gathered about him, were surprised, and took hold of him, and he walked out to meet them at the door of the monastery where he embraced them with a holy kiss. When Abba Theodore took his right hand and Abba Zacchaeus his left hand, they walked with him, and all the other brothers followed behind until they came to the place where he lay. Then they prayed and sat down. All the brothers were seated around him. There was great joy on his face, like that of an angel of God. And then he began to speak these words of exhortation to them. So, when we think about Saint Anthony, we think about his life and the words recorded in his life. And then there are letters that he wrote. And then there are sayings of the Desert Fathers that are recorded of him. And now we have this. In the Pachomian Koinonia, we have these holy words of St. Anthony. Do not be grieved, brothers, because the righteous man Abba Pachomius has died. For actually you have become his body, and you have received his spirit. Indeed, I longed very much to see him while he was still in the body, but perhaps I was not worthy. For the fact that he gathered souls about himself in order to present them wholly to the Lord reveals that he is superior to us, and that it is the path of the apostles he took that is the Koinonia. So Saint Anthony is saying, Saint Pachomius is better than me, and that he gathered souls around him in this Koinonia. So Abba Theodore answered very politely, you are more praiseworthy than we, for you are the last of the prophets. And what he means by that, those that speak the word of God. But Abba Zacchaeus could not restrain himself and answered thoughtlessly, surely you are deceiving us. If the Koinonia in which our father walked is the superior path of the apostles, then why did not you also live in a Koinonia and nurture a multitude of souls, as you have said, reminding you that the Koinonia was people living kind of like in apartment style or dorm-like, living structures where they're all together, as opposed to St. Anthony, where one father would live a couple miles away from the next father, a couple miles away from the next father, and the collection was miles apart from each other, and they wouldn't see each other daily. For we all know that you are a righteous man, accomplished in every good way of life. The Lord knows that our Father never stopped speaking to us constantly about you, holding up your life for us to emulate in the days when he was in the body with us. And I also want to remind you, in the very beginning, we taught Saint Pachomius, the Koinonia, came out of the anchorite life. He lived with an anchorite for many years and then developed the Koinonia. So one gave birth to the other. Nevertheless, Abba Anthony replied, I will convince you, little Zacchaeus, for he was short of stature. So it seems like whoever named him had a sense of humor. In the question you posed to me. Actually, when I became a monk, there was as yet no Koinonia on earth to make it possible for me to live in a Koinonia. There were only a few people who used to withdraw a little way outside their village and live alone. This is why I too became an anchorite. Then the path of the apostles was revealed on earth. This is the work our able Abba Pachomius undertook. He became the refuge for everyone in danger from the one who has done evil from the beginning. For everyone in danger from the one who has done evil from the beginning. Now then, if I too wanted to assemble a Koinonia, I would not be able to do it, for I did not grow up in this kind of work from the beginning, so that I acquired those skills necessary for dealing correctly with each one. So he's like, I didn't live in one, and I couldn't start it. And he says, likewise, if I were to join one as a brother now, I would be subject like the little ones, the young ones. I would not be able to do it because of my advanced age. Therefore, I've chosen to continue as I am. Actually, every time I have come from the mountain to visit the brothers, my whole aim has been this, to speak with one of the brothers, fortifying him with the word of God, that I might obtain a reward from the Lord. I tell you this, I am filled with great zeal in the Lord, that a single soul may be healed in the Lord through me. Beyond that, I am not allowed to do as I wish. When they heard that I had come to the outer mountain, many groups and crowds, besieging one another with importune requests, would come running to us and persist in demanding that I write to the authorities and the judges concerning their requests. But I say that there was no profit in this as far as our vocation is concerned. So I would rise quickly and withdraw to the mountain and live by myself. So he's saying, like there was a time where, I just wanted to help people to know God, but people would come to me not with requests about God. Then some, it's interesting. There's politics at play in this book. So then some bishops and priests come and they're annoyed. They're like, you never get up for us when we come. And yet you got up for these guys that came from Upper Egypt. These monks that came from Upper Egypt. You get up for them, and so Saint Anthony tells them, I tell you, have got very angry in your hearts because I have praised the way of the brothers. Have you become angry without reason? Certainly not. Have we become angry without? We have become angry in our hearts because for a long time you have been so weak that we were simply unable to get up to embrace any of us, whether it was a bishop, a tribune, whatever. And so he says, look, I will convince you in this matter and tell you exactly what happened. As the Lord knows, it was not only because of them that I came out to meet them, but a glorious angel of the Lord had preceded them, and before the news was brought to me, informed me that the sons of Pachomian of Tabanesi have come to you. So he's also insulting them. No angel basically came to tell me that you guys are coming. So you're not that important. And while the angel was speaking with me, the news about the brothers was brought to me. The brothers of the Koinonia have come to visit us. Suddenly the Lord's power came upon me. I got up and ran out to embrace them. You see, there was a tremendous pull by the monasteries of the people in the cities and the villages. We're going to the monastery trip this week. So basically, there's a power shift, where you can imagine, oh, Abba Pachomian said this, and the priest or the bishop says, well, I say this. Say, okay, but Abba Pachomian said this, or Abba Anthony said this. And we're going to do what Abba Anthony said. So the bishops would go out to learn from them, but they wanted this respect, and this being held in high regard, high esteem. And it was through the wisdom of Saint Athanasius that he was able to bring the monastic movement into the church, because the monastic movement was just lay people, just lay people. They lived like I don't want to say like commune, but sorry, there's something I told you. I don't know if it's allergies. I don't know. I don't know what this sounds like in the recording, so forgive me. So anyway, this kind of power, and then some other monks from his own monastery had similar. These guys, every time we go down to them and visit them, they accuse us of being heretics. The Meletians were a schismatic group, and I can't remember if they're schismatic because they were Arians, or I think it was basically every time there was a second patriarch who was enthroned during the time of Saint Athanasius, who was enthroned in Egypt over the Coptic Orthodox Church, over the Church of Alexandria, who was basically an employee of the government when the government kind of shifted towards Arianism for a little bit. And so there's this kind of like they would go down, and then we would be accused of being um, Meletians, right, of the schismatic group. And he said to them, basically, why are you upset? These guys are testing you to see if you're a false prophet. They're doing exactly what's in the Bible, so you shouldn't be upset. Anyway, it's interesting how that kind of continued, and then so while this is all going on, they end up getting in a boat to go to Abba Athanasius, and they have a letter from Saint Anthony to Saint Athanasius, and then Petronius dies. Petronius says, Horsius is the person to take the lead. So Petronius dies on the 19th of July or in the 25th of Abib. And then Horsius is the one who takes over. They pray a Eucharist for him, and they bury him in the mountains. So he visited them, he legitimized them, he went to them and spent a lot of time with them, especially in his exiles. He would live among them. And he greatly saw the value of the monastic life. And then over time, I don't know where the shift had. So he wrote the life of Saint Anthony, right? That was a huge kind of like legitimizing of monasticism. That letter was read by all the great fathers, Saint John Chrysostom, Saint Basil, Saint Gregory, Saint Augustine. It converted him, that life, or really kind of made him take Christianity seriously. So then, and then over time, the monastics became the leaders of the church, right? So the monastics, whereas like Saint Athanasius wasn't a monastic, Saint Cyril wasn't a monastic. These guys were not necessarily taken from the monasteries, but over time, the monasteries would be taking these people to be the leaders of the church, and the monasteries became kind of centers of education and strongholds against heresies. So then you find in the stories afterwards, like Saint Shenouda goes to the Council of Ephesus to sort of, and Saint Athanasius, you have Saint Athanasius writing how Saint Anthony was against the Arians. You have Saint Pachomian' story here against those who were Origenists. Now, the difference between an Origen and his teachings and Origenism or Origenists were those who took like a perverted idea of what Origen was saying and promoting that as if, oh, our great teacher used to say this, when in fact probably Origen mentioned it, discussed it, but didn't teach it or preach it, right? So so a lot of these are sort of showing how the monastics are the ones that are really fighting against these heresies as well. So then what I like, we're going to go do a little bit more. So this guy takes charge of the Koinonia. Then Theodore, while in Alexandria, receives the news of Petronius' death, and so there's weeping over that. And then we get to Anthony's letters to the brothers. And we'll read a few of these. Oh wow, time has flown. yeah, there is a lot of kind of so what we're gonna do is I'll just read the finish this, and then I'm gonna I'm gonna shift because I think I only have 2 more weeks before the I said two more Tuesdays before Holy Week. Let me see here. So we have 31st, 24th, 31st. Yeah, yeah. And then the 7th. So what we're gonna do is one volume. Next week we'll do volume 2, and the following week we'll do volume 3. Just I'll pick some stories out of that. So keep reading, enjoy as much of this as you can. So he says, so this is Anthony's letters. Those dots. Typically, if I went into the footnotes in the back, probably parts of the manuscript were destroyed or not found or not there. So they've put together as much as they could. Consoling the brothers about him by saying, "Devoted brothers, I want to tell you this. When I heard that the holy Abba Petronius, whom our father Pachomian had appointed over the Koinonia to succeed him, had died, I was very sad indeed by him and apprehensive that the holy brothers might become orphans. While I was still overcome with sorrow, a soft voice reached my ears. The Lord has raised up over the holy Koinonia another capable father, Abba Horsisius." So there's clairvoyance here on St. Anthony's part. "Thanks to the Spirit of God which is in him, he will be able to care for your souls and bodies, for because of your devotion, this saying of the Lord has been fulfilled. I will not leave you orphans, I will come back to you. Now then, holy brothers, we should not call him Horisius, but rather the Israelite, that is, the one who sees God with interior as well as exterior eyes. You brothers are blessed because God has made you um, worthy of a father strengthened by the Spirit of God." So what's important there is that you get the father you are really desiring. And when you pray to God and you say, "God, please send me a spiritual father who's going to guide me and help me in my spiritual road," he sends one to you. When a church is looking for a second priest, collectively they should pray, "God, send us a shepherd who is going to guide us in truth, shepherd us against in safety against the devil, and guide us to the pasture of the kingdom of heaven." So pray then to the Lord, the God of our father Pachomius, that he may confirm you in his peace, and that, with like all the saints, you may submit to him. Greetings to those who are with you. Then he also wrote a letter to the athlete of Christ, Abba Athanasius, the Archbishop, asking him too to console the brothers with encouraging words, because both their father and the one whom he appointed to succeed him, Abba Petronius, had died. He actually said it this way: even though it is not necessary to write to concerning the brothers who are with you, the sons of Pachomius of the Holy Koinonia, since God has given rest to both their father and the one he appointed to succeed him, having received them into his glorious dwelling. Nevertheless, we were very worried that the Koinonia might be dispersed, or that the holy brothers might become orphans. But then, thanks to the raising of your holy hands, it was not long before we also heard that the blessed Abba Petronius, the successor of the blessed and holy Abba Pachomius, had installed another in his place, Abba Horsisius. So he says, by the prayers of Saint Athanasius, this happened. So there's a connection. Trying to Abba Anthony is saying to Abba Athanasius, this is your responsibility. These are your people. This is your thing. You can't just say, "Oh, this is the monastics," and they're going to deal with it. We believe that he will become a great light for the Koinonia, and that many will receive comfort, strength, and edification when he speaks words prompted by the grace of God, by the grace God will bestow on him. We are convinced, therefore, that this man should be called the Israelite. We urge your high priesthood now to encourage those with you, to instill loyalty to him in them, and to take care of their every need. Pray for us, O unquenchable light, source of intelligence, boast of the saints, greetings. So he's asking Saint Athanasius to instill in the community, the Koinonia, a life of a loyalty to Horsesius, to create unity and love Um, After a shepherd dies, there's always disunity. And it's always been the case in the church. So much so that when we celebrate in our liturgy, when we celebrate the death of a patriarch, usually the reading is the Good Shepherd, John chapter 9. I am the Good Shepherd. Because people sometimes fixate, oh, Pope Carolus died. Oh, who do we have after him? Nobody's going to match up to him. And then when Pope Shenouda came, people were like, you're nothing like Pope Carolus. We want Pope Carolus. We follow Pope Carolus. And the God is, or the church is reminding us, God is the good shepherd. The people in front of us shepherd us, but God, Jesus Christ, is the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep, and we follow the good shepherd. Doesn't mean we don't listen to the bishops and the priests, but we understand that Jesus Christ is the shepherd of the church. Believe me, after Pope Shenouda died, and today we're remembering his memorial, his departure day today. Afterwards, people are like, nobody's going to be able to fill those shoes, right? And it's going to keep going. But the just God give him long life, but they're going to say the same thing after him. No one's going to be able to fill his shoes. So we look to Christ, and there's disunity. People like, if Pope Shenouda said something different from Pope Carolus, there's peeps, but we're just going to keep doing what Pope Carolus taught us to do. And we're not going to do, like there's, and then, oh, you belong to that camp and you belong to this camp. And so the bringing of unity is really tremendously important, right, in the church. Unity is a mark of the gospel. Unity is a mark that Christ is blessing the place. Division is a mark of the devil in any capacity. So there's always got to be union and unity in the church. When the letter of Abba Anthony wrote to encourage them reached Abba Theodore and Abba Zacchaeus and the other brothers with them in Alexandria, they were very much cheered, and all the more so because he had written to the archbishop, the father of the faith, about them, commending them to him as sons of the Israelite. So he would treat them with great kindness. And the brother said to Abba Theodore, we are certainly fortunate to be worthy of having these great luminaries take an interest in us. They are looking after our souls because of their great devotion to our Father. Abba Theodore answered them, it is the labors of our Father, his tears, and those of the holy Abba Petronius, which intercede for us everywhere. Moreover, our Father Horsicius will also become a source of life for our souls in every good work. I tell you this, my brothers, I heard our father say one day, and the ancients from that period also heard him say it. In Egypt now, in our generation, I see three principal things flourishing with the favor of God and man. The first is the blessed athlete, the holy Abba Athanasius, the Archbishop of Alexandria, who struggles for the faith even to the point of death. The second is our Holy Father Anthony, who is the perfect model of the anchoritic life. The third is this Koinonia, which is the pattern for everyone who wants to gather souls together according to God in order to help them achieve perfection. Horsicius Theodore returns and is submissive to him. Just want to see if there's maybe a couple more things I might have marked in my copy. Yeah. There's so much. I have so much kind of underlined in the rest of this. So I really encourage you to kind of keep going. What you find in the writings afterwards, whether it is Horsicius speaking or Theodore speaking or somebody else, all of it is coming from Pachomius. All of it is how he taught them. And so there's a lot of good teachings kind of that come out of this, and not really, um, you know, stories of like kind of miracles but really good, yeah. So, please kind of continue on with that. Oh wow. Um, Even something like this on page 220 in the book. I mean, this is powerful and it's so important for our day and age. He says, an angel of the Lord appears to Theodore. I don't know what the context is, and I don't know what's going on. But one of the angels standing by the Lord said to Theodore, "Why do you not frequently exhort the brothers not to neglect the synaxis at the hour of prayer and to offer their prayers to the Lord?" So he says, "Why aren't you telling the brothers to go to every gathering of prayer in the church? Why are you not doing this? Do you not," he goes, "do you not realize that the Lord frequently comes among them then to restore those who are broken down and to forgive those who have sinned?" So this is something for us that we take in our own spiritual lives, that we should run to church whenever there's something going on in church. And I've said this kind of in private to people, but I think I can, say it more publicly. You should look at the priest as the model of where to be, right? If the priest is there, you should be there, right? The priest is, I'm not, my paycheck doesn't go up if I pray more vespers, or more liturgies, right? But if you're free, if you're not working, if you have time, if you're available, you should be where he is, because he's trying to bring you kind of closer to God. And in those places, in those moments, is when you find the peace that you're looking for, or the answers you're looking for. Even the gospel messages or the psalm messages. Can't tell you how many times the last couple of weeks, every time I listen to the readings, there's something there. I mean, it happens more than not. There's something about a specific issue that I'm dealing with, that God is telling me X, Y, and Z. I can't make this stuff up, right? I'm not the one picking the readings, right? But those that are listening say, okay, that's what God wants me to do. All right, so this was volume one, the best I could do. Hopefully we'll have another pass at this in a couple of years or so. I have it electronically. For those that don't, you can reach out to me. I'll send it to you electronically. We have like kind of a book club WhatsApp group that I haven't looked at in a while. If you're in it, great. If you're not in it and you want to get into it, let me know, because I will end up sending the second volume right after this. Send the second volume out in that group. All right. Those of you who